John 21:25, the Bible says, and there are also many other things that Jesus did, which if they were written one by one, I suppose that even the world itself could not contain the books that would be written. That's the last verse of the Gospel of John, verse 25 of chapter 21. And when we look at it, and John writes that many other things that Jesus did, that if you wrote them all down, the world could not even contain the books. We know that's a slight degree of exaggeration, but we also understand that there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of books that have been written just because Jesus has lived and just because Jesus was on this earth, and we have learned from his teaching. But John also tells us that the intention of his gospel was not to be exhaustive and minutely record in detail every single aspect of Jesus' life. In fact, a great deal of the Bible is like that. It doesn't record every detail about every person, every thing that they did every time. And we accept that in life. In fact, we should not be too critical of John because of that, or the rest of the scriptures, because we accept that in other parts of life. First of all, there are few situations that demand such an exhaustive commentary or recording of every detail about someone. And we understand that with many, many things in our life. For instance, how much do you know about your parents? Do you know every single detail about your parents, the people you've known the longest in your entire life? I only found out a few weeks ago how my mother and father even met one another. How did I go all these years without even knowing that? And so we understand that. We understand that not every detail about every person is known to us, and that's what John is simply saying here. And we also understand that this was not intended to be an exhaustive history, but it's really redemptive history like the rest of the Bible. And it focuses on God's purpose and God's plan to bring redemption to man. In fact, it's very similar to what John writes as we have it recorded in the very last two verses of the previous chapter. He tells us that truly many other signs Jesus did in the presence of his disciples that are not written in this book. You see, he's very upfront about it. He's very honest about it. He said, I'm not telling you everything, and so there's nothing to hide here. But it was about redemptive history, because the next thing he says is that these things that I have written, that I have recorded, were written that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, and that by believing in him, you would have life in his name. The most important thing to be written is your name, my name, in the book of life.